Hey everybody, what's going on? This is DJ Fusion of the FuseBox Radio Broadcast. I'm recording this solo just because I had some extra thoughts. I guess what would be an addendum to last week's full-length FuseBox Radio Broadcast episode, where we were just talking about the various happenings in regards to the protest uprisings, etc., and the counter movements that have been influenced by the essentially state sanctions deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, and just the many other instances of police brutality that have happened here in the States. It's definitely a situation where I feel that what a difference a day makes is very, very true. After we recorded that show, a lot happened, particularly in the DC metro area of which we reside in, including the horrible photo op situation with the current title holder of president here in the country over at St. John Baptist Church, literal military being dispatched here and other places, as well as literal army helicopter trying to disperse protesters around Chinatown in DC. I personally reside in an area where I'm not very far from military bases, Army and Air Force. So to know that those forces and literally hearing helicopters and stuff going in particular directions is very disturbing. To feel that folks were trying to toy with what fascist and authoritarian governments would tend to do. As much as you may look at historic patterns and just how people have treated those who are not looked at as fully human, which in this country is pretty much everybody but rich white people, it's disturbing. Just because you can feel something's going to happen, you don't want it to happen, much less having people, the vast majority of which are doing the quote-unquote the correct protesting of being peaceful, that none of it mattered. And then on top of that, just the deluge of video one has seen of protesters all over the states being hurt for exercising their rights via some of the same law enforcement who's like, don't vilify us. It just bugs you out a bit. It bugs you out a bit. And while I'm very glad that people, fellow media people, fellow friends, etc., all kinds of backgrounds reach out and just tell like, what do you think? What do you think? What's going on? Or they want to share their thoughts about particular things that they might not necessarily felt politically on the blatant level or otherwise, it gets stressful, you know? And while I'm grateful that people look at me as an ear to listen to and to bounce ideas and concepts off of, it can still be exhausting because I'm still a person trying to live. The Black Hawk is still a person trying to live our regular day to day, on top of just naturally caring about this type of thing in general. Like, it can be a mental burden. And that's from the folks who have good intent, you know. Sometimes I think people look at black media, especially independent black media, who talk about all kinds of things, and they want their representative to be on the front lines immediately, whether it's literally or figuratively via on the mic, just talking about everything 24/7, 365. And I think that sometimes people don't realize that, you know, we are about certain things. And that's everybody from shows like us who, you know, try to balance out, you know, various stuff, to people who might strictly talk about politics, to people who do entertainment. And I think sometimes folks don't realize that we are not their Negro. You know what I'm saying? In other words, you're not the convenient totem to always go to when you feel it's convenient. Then you just go about your life and you make no changes, or you don't even ask the people who you're talking to, hey, how are you doing? How are you feeling about what's up, etc. And I just had to honestly say, for me, it was just one of those kinds of ways that I felt. So I had to step back for a minute, especially because while my health has vastly improved, I still feel a bit of a way on some levels physically. Like, I've loved to be at the protest, but quite frankly, I can't run or jog. And unfortunately, from what we've seen, I need that right now. I'm still, more or less doing stuff with a cane and, trying to progress to walking unassisted. To just, I don't know. Like, I just had to express some of this type of stuff because I think sometimes we're in a world, especially for those of us who maybe are like Gen X or above, that you kind of get ignored until something happens, and then everybody wants that energy from you and doesn't necessarily think of giving it back. And I know this has happened to some of our fellow Black media folks too, and some folks on their shows and privately have had conversations in terms of, hey, we try to keep it as light as possible. You're like, we'll talk about various things because they naturally affect our lives, especially with these situations, but we can't just be this particular thing 24/7. And I don't think it's right to ask people to be that way 24/7, because that in itself sometimes eliminates people's basic humanity. One of the things that all of this type of stuff comes down to is how people want to look at you as human. And it's not cool being looked at as subhuman or a slave or somebody just to be around to hop forth and entertain, but everybody also can't be your Superman or Superwoman because you're feeling away. Sometimes we feel away too, and we got to, pull back and forth and counterbalance with stuff. And I just had to record this just because a lot of people were going through the similar situation that I was, and I say was because I'm still determined to fight against nonsense and whatever else via whatever means, whether it's via this mic, through different organizations I'm involved with, or just, letting people know this ain't it on a interpersonal level in various aspects of my life to the show. And yeah, man, like, we're at a really, really interesting age right now. Like, about 100 years ago, this country went through a lot of change too. And as a person who's very big in terms of history and historical cycles, we're in one of those cycles. And I think folks got to remember that even in the midst of what may seem like darkness and craziness, change can come forth and occur. We're already starting to see it. We're seeing folks who never questioned how certain things flowed and function, who are finally doing it and want to get into a direction of change. And I think that's cool. I just think one of the things that folks got to look at is going to be a push back and forth. Like, Black America and or people who have gone through similar situations in other countries aren't going to always be able to be your teacher even if they want to be. You got to be able to learn and teach on various things yourself. And when we have media outlets like this, we want to be a part of that catalyst that helps people get to that point. But we also want to be part of the change and everything in terms of reminding people that you can still be people. You can still laugh. You can still love. You can still enjoy things. You can still feel emotions, because sometimes I think people don't think that you feel emotions when you do this type of stuff. You got to be that static image of you're always about this, you're always about that. And that in itself is a pardon me, guys. Coffee and dry mouth, dehumanizing type of situation, Black folks, and I think particularly Black folks in America, always have a thing where you gotta be strong. There's certain things that people always got to deal with that I think until recently, when you started seeing other folks get hurt in these protests, who, it's bad in general, but I think for some people, until they see their own allegory of like, whoa, that's like, my peepaw right there, like what happened with the elder citizen in Buffalo, where he was literally shoved down by law enforcement, unarmed and everything, and, cracked his head. Unfortunately, as of this time I'm recording, we don't know what type of health situation he's in. You had to have people see stuff like that to be like, wow, this is bugged out. And I look at everything with this because having done this show for so long, since the late 90s, we see these police brutality situations come and go. We talk about them. We've interviewed people. We try to work for change. We play the music of past, present, and so forth that wants to inspire change while still being a groove, while still being a jam, while it's having its message. And sometimes you get to feeling kind of fucking helpless, like, what am I doing this for? Who am I talking to? Who am I reaching out to? Because it seems like there's so little change happening. But we got to remember, change is happening. I can't say everything has been the same way since, off the top of my head, Amadou Diallo was killed by the NYPD back in the late 90s, early 2000s, right? Progress has been made, but it's just so damn slow, and it's so tiring, always feeling like people are just there like, teach us this, teach us that, learn whatever. Treat folks like basic human beings, and we will get so far right now. And looking at people of multiple ages, from these younger generation, Gen Z, to millennials, to Gen X, and so forth, who, if you weren't already pushing towards things, want to push towards even more. Also in the midst of a pandemic, and who knows what else. We're barely touching base on 6 months into the year. We're going to be able to get through this. We're going to be able to make it. I think we're going to get through this better and stronger, but we also got to be prepared for if things take a darker road. As of this time, you do have people who are backing off on various things at various levels, partially due to actually having a heart, to partially due to not wanting to meet the proverbial and maybe literal, who knows how some folks are looking at revolutionary things right now, guillotine, with going in a direction that is definitely not anything near American democracy, even in its worst form. So yeah, y'all, again, stay strong, keep cool, emote if you need to. I mean, a lot of folks, when this type of stuff happens, you still got to go to work. You still got to interact with your family and kids. Like, you got to be real, but sometimes you got to put on that mask depending on the situation you're in. If you got to go in the room and yell and cry or whatever, work it out. Just take a break, turn off your social media, do that. Like, don't let the darkness go through and envelop you. Take those breaks when you can. And that includes through various outlets of music, TV, etc. Just to take a break. Don't let folks take away your core humanity, and that in itself have, people just feel like they can control you and take away every right possible, including the minimum ones that we have right now. And I just wanted to also just thank people again for reaching out, checking in, seeing what's good, for those who know the areas we're in, and those who know we have loved ones in different areas too, from New York to Cali to the Midwest and so forth, where some of the more bugged out expressions and atrociousness have happened, Seattle and all of that. And also, just want to thank some of the folks who, over the past few days, it's about a week now that I'm recording this, who've reached out and thanked people for having content for them to listen to. As long as I've done this show, like, everybody who just reaches out and is just there like, hey, thank you for like expressing something that maybe I'm not able to express right now, or y'all put it in a particular light, or just thank y'all for the music I was able to jam for, a few hours and not had to think about this 24/7 news cycle that seems to be majority garbage and nonsense. I appreciate y'all, because y'all give us energy as well to keep on doing what we're doing, and not to necessarily feel crazy that we're not fitting into somebody's particular box. For folks who know, we don't do that well for FuseBox Radio anyway, but yeah, so love all y'all guys. We definitely got more content for y'all, from the extended FuseBox Radio Classic episodes to the various mini mixes y'all see popping up, and we got a live streaming site that I hope to do the hard public push on in June. So for some of y'all weekend afternoons, you'll get a live hour or two of folks just having some fun with some jams, and people can sit back and relax and enjoy that for a minute. And we'll probably end up having a separate podcast feed for that as well, but we'll announce all of that as time goes by. So we're going to make it through the nonsense, guys. And yeah, man, we're going to make it through the nonsense. Let's just appreciate that sometimes we all can't be on 100. And mentally, physically, etc., we're going to be straight. All right. Peace.